Good evening. I'll bring this regular City Council meeting to order. If we could please rise for the invocation from Reverend Wayne Rogers.
Let us pray. Most heavenly and gracious Father, we thank you for being present with us here this evening. We ask for your blessings for our country, for the safety of our servicemen abroad, for our elected leaders, that you guide us here tonight as your trusted servant leaders, that your guidance, wisdom, and peace be the spirit that leads us all. We ask all of this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. Weems.
Mayor McPartland.
Here.
Vice Mayor Coy.
Here.
Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
Councilmember Hill.
Here.
Councilmember Kitchen. Here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Agenda modifications. I'd like to add a Veterans Day proclamation to the agenda. And also I'd like to pull on the consent agenda, item 7B. Any other modifications? All right. All right, I guess I'll give it to myself today, and then I'll give it down to the veterans on November 11th. This is a proclamation for Veterans Day. And I just recently started volunteering with the Visiting Nurses Association. They have a hospice program, and specifically identifying veterans who are in hospice. And I got to take part in that. And once they identify a veteran in hospice, we go down there, we give them a certificate thanking them for their service to our country. They give them a lovely pin, and then they have these wonderful ladies who make these red, white, and blue quilts. We give them that, but the big surprise is at the end, they have a teddy bear that's dressed in the uniform of the branch of service that they were in, and then typically for the Navy, it plays Anchors Aweigh. I'm an Army guy, it plays the Lee Greenwood song. I haven't given out any Marine bears or Air Force bears yet, but you know, I look at it and it's a wonderful opportunity to sit with these individuals and their family. And again, for Veterans Day, you know, recognition is respect made visible. So if on Veterans Day you can take that same opportunity. So this is a proclamation for Veterans Day, November 11th, whereas at 11 a.m. on November 11th, 1918, after 4 years of bitter conflict, the world rejoiced and celebrated the signing of an armistice by the Allied forces and the Federal Republic of Germany for the cessation of World War I. And whereas to remember the sacrifices that the men and women made to ensure that lasting peace, on November 11, 1919, Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, proclaimed an Armistice Day in the United States. And whereas in order for a grateful nation to pay homage to veterans of all wars, on June 1st, 1954, Dwight Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States, signed into law a bill introduced by U.S. Representative Edwin Rees from Kansas, renaming Armistice Day to Veterans Day. And whereas in 1971, Richard Nixon, the 37th President of the United States, declared Veterans Day to be observed on the second Monday in November, and whereas because the commemoration of Veterans Day was a matter of historic and patriotic significance, on September 20th, 1975, Gerald Ford, the 38th President of the United States, signed Public Law 94-97, which returned the annual observance of Veterans Day to its original date of November 11th. Now therefore, I, Bob McParland, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Sebastian, and on behalf of the Sebastian City Council, do hereby proclaim and call upon all residents of Sebastian to observe a moment of silence at 11 a.m. on November 11th in remembrance of all the veterans who fought to safeguard our heritage and freedom, and to celebrate and proudly display the flag of the United States of America. All right, leads us up to brief announcements. Tomorrow, October 26th, the Sebastian Police Department will have their community night out from 5 to 7 in Riverview Park. So if you're around, come down and see all the wonderful law enforcement, and I guess they'll be bringing down some toys for people to see as well. And then tomorrow night in the chamber here, we're going to have the Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum from 7 to 9. So after you have some fun down at the park, then come here to the chamber and see a little bit more fun. October 28th, we're going to have the Halloween costume contest at 10 a.m. in Riverview Park. I think it's only open to the kids, right, Joe? Okay, but adults can dress just as well, but there won't be any prizes for you. And then November 3rd to November 5th, of course, there'll be the Sebastian Clam Bake Festival in Riverview Park. So starting on Friday night through Sunday, come on out and enjoy the festivities. Joe has told me that the weather will be fantastic. And then Andrea, do you?
Yeah, one last announcement. Because we don't have a council meeting prior, Veterans Day is November 11th, 11/11 at 11 o'clock in Riverview Park. Veterans Day celebration is going to be very different this year, and I would really encourage you all to come out. We have the Sebastian Charter Junior High School is doing the presentations. They're going to be our guest speakers. So the kids are doing the ceremony. Please come down and cheer them on. All our veterans are going to be there and participating in the ceremony also. But come show the kids some support too, because we want to encourage them to participate. So see you there. It's a Saturday, no excuses. Saturday, come on down.
All right, thank you. Any other brief announcements, Council? All right, leads us up to our consent agenda, and remember I pulled item 7B.
Move approval of item A and C through G.
Second.
All right. Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Vice Mayor Coy,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Kitchen,
Yes.
Mayor McPartland.
Yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. All right, item 7B, resolution number R-17-38. Mr. Griffin, you bringing
Yes,
some
sir.
changes?
Well, we had a few things that, a few contingencies that we would like to put out for public disclosure. And I'll let Lisa Frazier, our Community Development Director, and Cynthia Hall, our Interim City Attorney, make that presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. Before you this evening is the final plat for the Sandcrest PUD Phase 2. Staff has verified that the final plat is in accordance with the preliminary plat approved by Resolution R-1514 on June 24th of 2015. Additionally, all engineering and surveying details have been satisfied in accordance with the Florida statutes. However, while the county attorney's office was reviewing the final Mylar, they determined several discrepancies in regard to the title and the certifications. These discrepancies have been corrected as of 3:47 this afternoon. I received an email from the county attorney's office. So before you this evening is the new copies of the plats with the corrected titles and certifications. However, though staff does recommend approval of the Resolution R-1738 accepting the final plat for the Sandcrest PUD, we have put two conditions in the resolution for your consideration. The first condition is in regard to a quit claim deed that the developer will provide to the city for a piece of property that is, to the south of the PUD, that lies over a drainage ditch that the city currently maintains and is part of our stormwater system. The second condition that we are requesting is that once we get the final Mylar signed from the county, we will review it, make sure that it is in line with the county attorneys and our attorneys' review and signature, and we request that the city council make those conditions part of the resolution. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Frazier.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of Resolution R-1738 with conditions as described by staff.
Second. Anyone from the public wish to speak on resolution number R-17-38? Any further council discussion? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Kitchen,
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coy.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Leads us up to committee reports and appointments. Council have any committee reports? No? All right, leads us up to item 9. We have a quasi-judicial public hearing for resolution number R-17-36. I'll open that hearing as of now. Madam Attorney, will you read the ordinance for the resolution?
A resolution to approve the site plan consisting of demolition of an existing gas station and canopy, followed by construction of a 3-unit, 13,144 square foot retail building at 727 Sebastian Boulevard. A resolution of the City of Sebastian in Univers County, Florida, approving a site plan for the Dollar General retail store within Chester's Gap, PUD, providing for conflicts herewith and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Any council members need to disclose any ex parte communication?
Not communication, but I live within, 500 yards of this property, so just want to notify you of that.
All right, thank you. Ms. Williams, will you swear in all who intend to provide testimony?
Okay. Will you stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and the factual representation which you are about to give or present during this public hearing will be truthful and accurate? Thank you.
All right, so we have the applicant ready to provide us a presentation. Just state your name and where you live for the record.
Absolutely. Good evening.
Good evening.
Jeremy Anderson, I'm with Hanlex Development. The address is 1000 Color Place, Apopka. We're here tonight. I'm joined here tonight by William Anderson, and we're here seeking your approval of the new retail development at the Chester's Gap. William is going to do a presentation, but I wanted to do a quick introduction, introduce myself to you before turning that over to him. Again, my name is Jeremy Anderson. I'm the vice president of the company, and I'm also a professional engineer with an active professional engineer, and I've worked closely with the engineer of record on this project and his team. So after following the presentation, if there's any more technical questions or comments, I'll be sure to be here to answer those the best that I can. What we are presenting here tonight is the redevelopment of commercial outparcels to the Chester's Gap plan development. These outparcels are zoned for our intended use. They benefit from points of access that have been existing for quite a while now, and they're not going to be changed. The utilities are stubbed, and existing stormwater infrastructure is already in place. So it truly is a development that's consistent with the city's vision and also the existing conditions, both on-site and in the area. We're very happy with the results that have led to this stage to be here before the council tonight, and I'd like to thank the staff for helping us make that possible. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Will, and of course, I'll be here to answer any questions that I can. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good evening. William Anderson with Hanlex Development at 1000 Color Place, Apopka, Florida. And as Jeremy said, we are very happy to be working on this project here in the city of Sebastian, and we are pleased to be presenting this development to you tonight. I'm going to take you through a short discussion and touch on some important topics and considerations that have gone into this development. And we are here to address any specific questions you may have. Some of the important topics I'm prepared to discuss tonight are the proposed use, site layout and geometry, driveway access points, and traffic generation and circulation, and of course, landscaping and building architecture. Before we really get started, like Jeremy, I wanted to thank staff for all their hard work in getting us to this point where we are now. Without their help, tonight would not be possible, so thank you. Just to talk about the site a little bit, from a site layout perspective, the existing previously designed and approved access points will be utilized off of both Sebastian Boulevard and Fleming Street. The site will have perfect site circulation from a design perspective, with loading and deliveries being made behind the building, and the parking for the customers located mostly along the front of the building. As a corner commercial outparcel to the Chester's Gap PUD, the site also has existing utility and stormwater infrastructure that we will be utilizing. The council will also find beautiful landscaping, adequate parking and pedestrian access provided, and both public and emergency vehicle access standards met. In the design of this store, we have the objective of creating an inviting and welcoming space that belongs to a commercial neighborhood store, while at the same time complementing the architectural features that the city of Sebastian inspires. The sloped roof theme of the building is consistent with the city's architectural guidelines, as well as the character of the surrounding residential neighborhood. Many features enhance the building and break up the mass, including varying roof heights and projections, windows with shutters, and of course a central cupola. The building materials are contrasting with a layering look of stucco and coarse split face block. Our architect selected lighter colors for the stuccoed portion of the building, which creates a lightness, and the base of the building a darker shade with a heavy tint that implies strength at the base. The building also includes awning features and a sloped roof. These changes and materials in texture reinforce the inviting qualities of the building with the functioning quality of providing shade to our customers and further definition. The results of the collaborative efforts between the professionals working on this project have been: 1, a proposed use that is consistent with code and thereby in harmony with the city's vision. 2, architectural features and site development standards that meet or exceed both state and local criteria. And 3, an infill development located within the city of Sebastian. We are very pleased with these results. And again, Jeremy and I are here for any questions you may have for us. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. So I take it you two are brothers, right? Yeah, we are. All right, just want to get that straight. All right, Ms. Frazier, you want to give us your analysis?
Yes, sir. Thank you. As presented, this is a proposed development of a Dollar General retail store to be located on 1.4 acre tract within Chester Gap PUD, located at the intersection of Fleming Street and Sebastian Boulevard. Included in the project, as described, is the demolition of an existing Exxon gas station and canopy, followed by construction of a 3-unit, over 13,000 square foot retail building, which will definitely be an improvement. Because the project is located within a PUD, the site plan requires city council approval, and that's why we are here this evening. Staff has completed the review of the Dollar General site plan and finds all applicable city regulations have been satisfied. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on September 21st, 2017, and made 2 motions that were unanimously approved. The first was that the following conditions be met before the City Council quasi-judicial hearing this evening. 1, being final approval is received from the IRC Fire Department. 2, being written authorization is received from the Elks Lodge regarding tree trimming by a certified arborist and installation of the tree protection measurements, activities to be done by the applicant. And 3, revisions to the landscape plan sheet L1 by submitting, reflecting the additional hedge plants required. All 3 of those conditions have been met. The second motion by the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that City Council find that the site plan complies with the PUD conceptual development plan, the comprehensive plan, and the land development code, and approve the site plan with the following two conditions. One being copies of soil test results and inspections done by DEP during the tank closure activities, which I believe are occurring tomorrow or sometime this week, be submitted to staff before building permits can be issued. And number two, the subject property shall plat into the Chester's Gap subdivision. The requisite final plat shall be approved by City Council and recorded before a certificate of occupancy is issued for the project. So with that, staff recommends approval of resolution number R1736 with those conditions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Council, you have any questions for the Jeremy or William Anderson or Ms. Frazier? No? All right, at this time, I'll open the floor for anyone in favor of the request.
Good evening, Council. Ben Hawker, City of Sebastian.
Good evening.
I think the barn door was open already. You're talking about removing and doing demolition on the property. It's been being done. The parking lot's ripped up. The awning's starting to come down. I have a question. It's a former gas station. Have we done any testing for any leakage in the past or the present of the fuel tanks that were there? But these people are coming before you, and construction work has already started. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me get this straight, Mr. Hawker. Are you in favor of the project or against the project?
I'm in favor of, but not the way it's being accomplished, by starting prior to getting approval from the city. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Frazier, any problems with the gas tanks down there, the former ones?
As mentioned previously, the developer has informed us that the tank closure report will be submitted to the city probably within the next week or so, because the tanks are being removed and the soils tested this week, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Okay, thank you. We might bring that up later.
And that process,
That part of the construction that might be, you're digging up the tanks, right, to check the site. There you go. That's good.
Come on up, Mr. Anderson.
and that process is generally regulated by Florida Department of Environmental Protection.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, point of order. I'm not sure it's appropriate to be bringing the applicant back up at this point in this quasi-judicial setting. I think it's more appropriate that we hear all of those opposed or in favor of, and then all of those opposed, and then have the applicant come up
All right.
at that point.
Well,
All right, well, I got it noted.
tell me
Anyone
when I
else
can
in
ask a
favor of this?
question, okay?
Anyone else in favor of this project?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Damian Gilliams, 1623 US Highway 1. I don't know if anybody can hear in the back. Can you do a sound check? Because I was talking to one of the other gentlemen, nobody can hear anything in the back. Is there a way that you can check that? I don't know if maybe the audio.
I'll talk a little louder, but we also have some hearing devices for people that are having trouble hearing.
I was
Now, are
talking-
you in favor of this
Yeah, I'm in
project?
favor of the project.
Excuse me,
I had
Mr.
a-
Mayor. Damian did not raise his hand, and he has not been sworn in.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not
only
going
if
to
he has
provide
some
any.
factual
Yeah, I'm not
information.
going to provide
Yeah,
any
as long as he
factual
doesn't provide
testimony.
factual information,
Yeah,
testimony,
thank
it's
you.
fine.
Appreciate that. Mr. Mayor, I was going through the paperwork, and I was looking at the application, and I just wanted to get some clarification. The application requests 12,000 square feet for the site plan, and then I see the site plan's over 13,000 square feet. So that was my first question. It's probably a minor question. I just was kind of confused because if you look at the application that's in your file, they were requesting in the beginning 12,000 square feet. I see that there's 3 stores, and then I think the site plan shows 3 front units, but possibly renting 2. Maybe the applicant could give us some clarification on that. And the third item, do we have a professional engineer on staff to sign off on this site plan, or? Are you a professional engineer, ma'am? No.
No, I
Okay,
am
so
not.
my question to the mayor is, do we have a professional engineer on behalf of the city that will sign off on this site plan? I see they have their engineer representing them, but does the city, I know we used to have an engineer, and I think it would be wise, if we don't, then we need to probably farm this out so that, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with their stormwater or their site plan, their landscaping, et cetera, but I think it would be wise, on behalf of the taxpayers of the community, to have an engineer review it and just sign off on it. I see that they also have a record professional surveyor as well. So with that, let's see if you can get some answers for us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, you're welcome. So you're in favor of the project? Yes. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of the project? At this time, I'll open it up for anyone who opposes this project. All right, Mr. Anderson, can you respond to the questions that came to mind?
Yes, sir.
First off, concerning the gas tanks and
Absolutely. So regarding the concerns raised with the gas tanks and going through the FDEP process with FDEP, the owner of this site who is selling it to us and we bought it from has done very, very well with ongoing monitoring with FDEP quarterly, and so all that information is on, I think at FDP's website is like the Oculus is where you would go to look at all those reports, and so that was all checked off, every line item along the way. So that led us to the point of getting to the stage where the city allowed us to submit for a permit to demo the gas tanks and get that going, and then what happens is, excuse me, we pull the tanks, and then at that time, we take samples immediately, and those go to a lab, and it, I don't know, it's like 5 days or something like that, and then those results are then submitted to FDEP, and as staff said, that they were certainly, it's a condition of the building permit to get that, the closure with FDEP, the successful closure, which will show a clean site, or if it does not show that it's clean, then we will have to take care of that before a building permit will be issued. But our intention at this time is certainly to remove the gas tanks as we are doing now and restore the area. So that's what's going on at this time. So I think that takes care, perhaps, the FDP.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, let me ask, do you actually have a DEP permit to pull the tanks? It's required that you do that.
Yeah, exactly. The contractor has pulled his permits with the state and also with the city.
With DEP?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you have the DEP permit, therefore they're going to follow up on the inspection.
Absolutely,
Right,
yeah,
that's-
yes, sir.
Because, in the planning and zoning meeting minutes, it said that the DEP permits will require that, but it didn't actually say they had them. But if they have the DEP permits, we're corrected with that. We're fine with that.
Would you like, okay. I didn't know if you needed me to respond. Typically, we won't look at the DEP permit until after the tank closure report has been
Right.
conducted, or concluded, I should say. And in the tank closure report, it gives you the DEP permit, it shows that the tanks have been removed, and it shows the soil testing that has been conducted,
Okay.
and water testing. They
right.
take water samples from the bottom of the tank pad also.
All right.
All right, and then the 12,000 square foot or 13,000 square foot?
Yeah, that kind of took me by surprise. I don't know why that was listed at 12,000 on the application, but certainly the building is not 12,000 square feet, it's 13,144, I believe.
Correct,
the
Ms. Frazier?
Is there,
And again, I'm not Dory Bosworth, but, so I was not there in the beginning. But what often happens during the site planning process is that as it's being reviewed in accordance with a city or local municipality's regulations, changes are made. And so I would only assume that changes were made in par with our regulations and with the needs of the developer to change the square footage. An application that is submitted is not necessarily the end game once the site plan is being reviewed through a local land development codes. So that's my assumption of how this came about, but I can assure you that the Planning and Zoning Board and our staff have reviewed it, and it is all in accordance with our land development code.
All right, thank you, ma'am. And I see the pictures. Are we looking at 3 stores or 2 stores or?
Okay, so in that, we are planning on doing, having 3 uses available. If in the future, a use comes in that requires a larger space, it would take those 2 available spaces, then that use would have, it would just be 2 uses instead of 3. So it's really determinant on who wants to come into the strip center.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Anderson?
Been any demolition done? I mean, I know there's been hurricane damage to that building over the years, many, many times, so are you doing any work other than fixing hurricane damage and doing the?
Our intention is to pull the tanks and pull a demo permit for the building. That's our intention to do, and I understand that to be permitted.
As far as you know, that's what's being done?
Absolutely, it is what's being done.
In accordance
absolutely.
with our rules?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we've
I'm
done the asbestos reports already for the building, so that's clean with asbestos, and so that's been submitted. And
Thank you.
so, yeah.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Anderson? All right. And then this question's for you, Mr. Griffin. Do you think we require a professional engineer to go down and test it, or are we happy with the DEP permit that will take care of all the monitoring?
On projects such as this, we do form this, we don't have a city engineer on staff at this time. On projects such as this, we do farm it out to one of our CCNA qualified professional engineers for review.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Ms. Frazier, you want to summarize the request, or are you happy with everything you provided us?
I believe I'm happy with what I've provided you.
All right. Council, what's your pleasure with this?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of Resolution R-1736 with the conditions as stated within the resolution.
Second.
All right. Any further council discussion? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Kitchen,
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coy,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right. Good luck to you guys. All right. We have no unfinished business. Now's the time for public input. Anyone who wishes to speak on something not already on the agenda? Yes, sir. Come on down.
Oh, not again.
Good evening, Bruce
Good evening.
Zingman. Still proud of Sebastian. I know I saw the fur coats and the headphone, the gloves coming out, but I did send a letter to. I want to thank you all for okaying our Christmas parade, and I did send a letter to Santa, and Santa says thank you, and he said he would come, and he'll bring some stuff, and the women's club that built the Halloween house. When they tear that down, they will build Santa's house. And so December 2nd, if anybody would like to participate, just call the chamber or go into the chamber and call the chamber at 589-5969. And everybody is welcome, except, as Andrea say, the politicians. And
No politicians. This is
but
for the
I just
kids.
want to thank you again for okaying it, and we'll work towards it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zingman. You bring a lot of joy to those kids with your tireless efforts of getting all the teddy bears for everybody. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Chuck Meckling, 5215 Trade Winds, Vero Beach. I've been doing business in this community in the development field since 1998, and I just wanted to take a moment to say that if it's to my understanding that Councilwoman Coy would be in essence her last city council meeting, and I just wanted to thank her for the service that she's rendered to the city. I understand there'll be an election November 7th, that the next council meeting won't be till the 22nd, so in essence, I guess this might be your last one. And I just wanted to say thank you for the service that you've given the city over all these years. I truly appreciate it, and I'm sure others do as well. Thank you.
Thank
That
you,
means
sir.
a lot. Thank you, Chuck.
Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
Yes. First, I'd like to give Andrea kudos for doing some good things for the city. I'd like to talk about Easy Street Park. I would have brought this up at the Parks and Rec Committee, but it was canceled this month, and there's a time frame, so I'm bringing it to you guys. The fountain at the park, if we could make that a green fountain, put a lens on it to make it green for veterans. On November 11th is Veterans. So I'm asking your permission to have that made a green for veterans. All it is a lens they have to put on. There's no cost in it.
Right.
The lens comes with the light kit, so.
All right, we can check on that, but some veterans might be offended by the green, because that's kind of like an Army color, you know? So we don't want to show any preferential treatment. I have no problem with the green. I don't think Ms. Coy does either.
Well, I have a problem with with colored lights on the fountain. It kind of makes it look like a circus down there. I'm not in favor of colored lights at all. I know we do it for 1 month now for autism, but for the neighbors there, changing the color of that light, I don't think it's a good idea. But this is my last meeting, so maybe you can come back, Sonny, and get more support, but I really don't want, I'm not in favor of colored
I've talked to
lights.
neighbors around there.
Well,
100%
I
was
guess
for
we'll
it, so.
leave it up to Mr. Griffin. I trust his judgment.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right?
I figured Coy would give us
Thank you.
against it, so.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Come on down, next contestant. You state your name and where you live, sir.
I live on 380 Concha, and about 10 days before the storm, Florida Power and Light put in a new pole, and in doing so, the outriggers of the crane made a hole in the middle of the road and probably broke a pipe underneath that. The city chose, rather than fix the hole, to put a steel plate over it, just like any third world country would do. The noise that the cars make when they run over the steel plate sounds like someone banging on my front door. This goes on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's been going on since they put the dumb steel plates over. Then the steel plate moved over, exposing the hole. So I called it in. The city, in all their wisdom, put another steel plate over the hole to, rather than move the original one over, they put a new one over it. That one now has a gap approximately like this, enough so a motorcycle front wheel will go into it and probably kill the driver, but that's beside the point. The noise is what I'm concerned with. Every time a car hits it, 24 hours a day, the banging noise is ridiculous. Why in the world wouldn't we just fix the hole like any other country, city would do?
All right, thank you. Can I get your name for the record, sir?
Daniel Richards.
Daniel Richards? All right. Thank you, Mr. Richards. Joe, you got that all down?
Is that 380 Concha?
380 Concha.
It's right where Crowberry and Contra meet.
I'll look into it.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Joe.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Yes, sir.
On behalf of the Alcathon, thanks for all the years of support and all that you've done for us. We've been having a long, many years of support and cooperation, and the hundreds and hundreds of alcoholics and addicts and everyone that we give this free service to them, that you give us all your support to, you know, for those people who have nowhere to go that show up. It's amazing what we see when we're there, and the family and camaraderie that you give us, and it's amazing. So it's so greatly appreciated by all you guys, and we really, really love you for what you do for us, so thank you.
All right. Thank you, Reverend Rogers.
Thank you.
You know, I'm glad it's what we can do for the citizens, because it provides an opportunity to get them stuck out of the bubble gum and leading productive lives. So thank you for what you do. Yes, sir.
Ben Hocker, City of Sebastian. A couple meetings back, I brought up the marijuana law that was put before the public. Andrea had mentioned it needed tweaking. At another meeting, it needed tweaking. Has any tweaking been done? The reason I'm asking this is they're talking to dispensaries. We're the only city, plus Vero, that are allowing it. The county is putting a one-year moratorium. The state's still befuddled, trying to figure out what to do. Is there a way we can rescind or put it on hold in compliance with Indian River County? And the reason I'm bringing this up, I'm watching the news the other night. It was either Stewart or Jensen, and they show a beautiful building. It was a doctor's office. In there, it would be a doctor who would handle the dispensary business. And across the street was a dispensary. Now that seems to me like we had the pill factories, where you went to a doctor in one storefront and you got your prescription and you went next door and bought it. Is there a way of, I'm not against it, believe me, I'm not against it at all. But when they went into that little storefront, there were display counters shown in there. For 3 pills, you need display counters. I think we might want to really look at it until the county itself and the state, and I think even the federal government's got a little problem with it, that we put it on the back burner or something. I don't know how you stop an ordinance, or do you bring it forward for a revision, and that stops anyone from applying under this ordinance. Now, a compliment. There were comments made. Well, the compliment is to the city manager for the docks. There were some odd comments made, though, like Trump put the wall in the wrong spot. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a nice dock, but it looks like a wall. We don't have fish cleaning facilities at it, which I found out was, I believe the DEP says you can't clean a fish and throw the carcass in the water. And I'm looking into, I believe a marina or a boat launching area is to have water to hose off the boats so you don't take contaminant from one area, launch your boat in another area. And I think that's a state law, maybe with FWC. I haven't had time to research it. And that's about all I have. But again, I think we jumped the gun to do an ordinance, and it might come back and bite us. We'll be the only city the only place in Indian River County to have a dispensary. You can also mail order all of the medications that are covered under that ordinance or that resolution that was passed by the state, or by everybody in the state. So it's not a matter of not being able to get it, but it just seems rather odd that the rest of the state is looking at it totally different than we are.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. And again, I'd just like to bring up, I think it was 66% of the Sebastian residents who voted voted for approval of medical marijuana, not smokable marijuana. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Damian Gilliams, 1623 US 1. I just wanted to come down personally and thank Mrs. Andrea Coy for her service to our community and the hard work and efforts that she put in. She taught me a lot while she was here for more than a decade, and I wish her a lot of luck in her retirement, and I want to also thank her for her service to our country. Thank you very much, Mrs. Andrea Coy. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak tonight? It brings us up to...
What I would like to make a remark. Please, for the public, Mr. Gilliams, that was thoughtful of you to come and thank me, but I guess that means I'm supposed to look back over 13 years and think that you had admiration all of that time. When you came in here with wigs and red jackets and mocked me, I guess you really meant to, that was your way of showing appreciation. All those horrible letters to the editor with your disdain for me. So I'm not so sure that that was genuine. And being my last meeting, I want the public to know that neither he nor I care for each other or ever have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Brings us up to new business. Item 12A, approve the driveway pipe culvert repair policy. Mr. Griffin.
Yes, sir. This was a issue that I brought up briefly last summer and started to talk about, and let council know that I'd be bringing this back later once I figured out where I wanted this policy to go. For too long, what has happened in this city with regard to stormwater conveyance is things get blocked up in our swales and driveways by collapsed driveway pipes. And I understand that this is controversial and that this will probably require a couple meetings of discussion, but now that we have discontinued the quarter-round installation, I feel like we do have the money in our stormwater fund to direct it towards repairing some of these under driveway pipes that impede stormwater flow and thereby stop things up and generally cause hate and discontent in the city because our stormwater is not flowing efficiently. What typically happens is that we find out that a driveway pipe has collapsed. It's brought to the attention of the city manager or our engineering tech. Code enforcement is notified. Code enforcement goes out there, they do the proper inspections, and they let the homeowner know that their driveway pipe is collapsed and they're going to have to replace it. So on a commercial operation, not a city operation, that could cost a homeowner easily $5,000. So either the homeowner doesn't want to, is incapable of, or otherwise it doesn't get done, but the problem is still there. So what happens, we go through the code enforcement process, that takes a month or two. We may have to abate the property and get the job done. That takes another couple months. What I'm getting at is 6 months down the road, maybe that one driveway is corrected, maybe, fully 6 months. All the while, we go through yet another rainy season and neighbors' properties are impacted by this one driveway or a couple driveways. So as I said, now that we have discontinued the quarter-round project, which one of the main reasons that we discontinued the quarter-round project was frankly, the non-cooperation of residents in maintaining the quarter-round that's been installed in the swale areas, and in a lot of ways, the quarter-round would be an impediment to the flow lines and stop the proper flow of water. But now that we've stopped that, which, as Councilmember Kinchin realizes, that was about $450,000 a year of an investment that we made over about, I think it was about 8 years. We now have that money in our stormwater fund to correct these driveway problems. I'm presenting this tonight really to open this subject up. You'll see in the next item that I have on our agenda is that we put this out to bid where we would have somebody under contract with us that we could, where we would identify these problem driveways, and we could have a contracting company go in there, do the work, get it done, perhaps do a whole block or a whole section of driveways to free up the stormwater and get it moving again. Let me read the policy that I have written, and I believe that that we should follow from here on out. We will repair residential driveway pipe failures that seriously impair the efficient flow of stormwater, and where property owners have a bona fide inability to take corrective action, and that property owners will retain ownership of and responsibility for city-installed driveway culverts pipes, and the city will not replace any portion of paved, textured, or painted design driveways. So I'm asking council to approve this policy, and so that we can embark from here on out on an efficient way of getting stormwater moving again efficiently in the city.
All right. Well, I think it's a good idea, Mr. Griffin. You know, it's just one of the concerns is that we do it this time, it's on you. And I think this also brings up, I brought up, I don't know how long ago, about we need to put a YouTube video together about how people maintain their swells, because it's their swell as well as the pipe that runs under their driveway, to make sure it's free of any debris and not clogged up. Because I think cleaning the drainage pipes is a wonderful business that people can do, just like the old chimney sweeper, you know, taking care of those. But I understand there are some elderly residents that we have that don't have the ability, and I think if we also identify some of those residents, there's a lot of nonprofit organizations that would be willing to come out and assist those people. So I think we need to also identify how many we think we have, and of course, the people who need it the most, we take care of.
I think if we approve this, I'm having a hard time hearing tonight for some reason. I think if we approve this, it's not a one-time thing. And I'm in favor of doing it because I understand that there's a lot of people out there that cannot clean out their swale or their pipe under the driveway. And one of the big problems we've got, you can see it today, the rain's slowing down a little bit, but there's still standing water all over the city. And a lot of it is the result of pipes under driveways that are blocking flow. But a lot of it's also the result of the swales that aren't sloped correctly. So the question, a couple of questions, and one question was, if we clean out the pipe and the swale's not resloped, that may not solve the problem. So it seems to me that if we do clean out a pipe, we're going to have to reslope the swale and resod, which is going to be an additional expense on top of that, if that does correct the problem. So that kind of elevates the cost associated with this if we're going to make the water flow correctly in some cases. I also see this as not as a one-time $150,000 investment. I think that we're talking about a long-term investment, and that we should include this within our capital improvement plan as an annual cost over the next 6 years, the length of the capital improvement plan, actually 5, and revise it at the next quarterly budget revision process to include that. I'm not sure exactly where, I know there's money in the stormwater fund, and I don't know where the 150 specifically will come from, but if we approve it, I think you need to have 150 this year and 150 next year and the year after that and the year after that, because it's going to take that to clean the swales up. So we're really talking about committing long-term funds, which I don't necessarily have an issue with as long as we understand that's what we're doing. I do have concerns about the swales themselves, though, because I just don't know how many instances in which cleaning out the pipe without doing resloping on the swale will solve the whole problem, and that's going to be an additional cost on it to do that. So maybe we need to think about combining both of those in the policy, because as you look at a piece of property and see it's not flowing correctly, it could be either one. It could be the pipe or the the swale slope, or it could be both that need to be dealt with. You know, if it's only the slope of the swale, that's a much smaller issue than actually replacing the pipe and cutting the driveway and doing all that kind of stuff. So I think that needs to be thought about as we move forward with this. Also, I'd like to see you're doing an engineering study on the streets. It might be appropriate to spend that kind of money again on this and try to do some form of an assessment on exactly where the problem is the worst, which driveways. I think the mayor alluded to that in his comments. You know, which driveways look to be the worst? Are there also problems with the slope of the swales on those property? And get some idea about count, and then maybe we can go about correcting the worst cases and not the most vocal all the time. So that's just my comments on it.
If I could, Mr. Dunn, there's a line item in our budget that I believe it's titled driveway pipe repair grants. That's a misnomer. It's not really a grant. In effect, we would be doing this work, so yes, it would be, in a sense, a grant, and it's $250,000. I agree with you 100%. This isn't some sort of test case that I'm throwing out there. This would be a career for somebody to do this around the city, 11,000 residents or 11,000 properties that we have. Also, last year, I think council would remember that I asked for and was granted authority to purchase another armadillo machine with a tractor. It was my intent at the time to have 2 crews that would, an armadillo machine cuts a little swath in the swale up to the driveway to affect better water flow, either because the silt has accumulated or the grass has grown or whatever it is, the slope has changed or whatever it is. For a couple of different reasons, we've really only had one of those machines operable at any one time. They are prone, because of the nature of the work, to have maintenance problems, but it's still my intent to have 2 of these crews at the same time working this. And I would like to see, once we were doing this, if this were approved by council, this policy on the driveway, where we could do a section of maybe, just as an example, Damask, north of Rolling Hills. The east and west side of that street could be done at the same time, driveways repaired, and the swales all at the same time. And it wouldn't be up to me to identify where those problem areas are. We've got a very talented person on staff who knows this city very well and how the water is supposed to flow, and he would be the one to really identify where this policy would be directed. So that's how I foresee this thing happening, evolving. This would have to be tweaked, I think, over time. This isn't maybe the catch-all that we're finished with this right now. We may run into problems where we would have to improve on it, but I think this is a start, and I don't think this is a one-year thing. It's going to take a while. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
It's very funny. This is very funny. It's not, I very much approve of this, but there are some issues in here that I have some questions for. But it's funny that, I mean, Ms. Kitchen knows very well that if she goes back to 2002, we had a policy of running an armadillo down through the swales and repairing the driveway culverts as we went along. The only difference, I think, now versus then is we're talking about paying for those culverts. And there are also 2 different issues that we're talking about. One, we're talking about cleaning the culverts, and that's not in this policy. This is for the repair, of the culverts. And I would hope that the repair of culverts will only take place during the process of the armadillo and the correction of flow. Unless, of course, there were one section where it was clear that the damaged culvert pipe was causing the issue. And then, of course, then we would go in and have that repaired. Again, it's sort of like an evolution in it. We went from doing what we're doing now back in 2002 and 2003 to doing, spending $3 million to put quarter round down throughout the city over the last 8 years, to now going back to using the armadillo and repairing and replacing the culvert pipes. I'm not an expert in any of that. I am an expert in cleaning them, and I know that it doesn't cost $119 a piece to clean. I can promise you that. There's technology out there that cleans them very quickly. So I support this, but there are some questions and concerns that this council needs to take to heart when we talk about the culvert pipe being owned by the resident, which we still say that it is. How can we say that this culvert is owned by the resident, but it's damaged, so we're going to make the repair, but if there's a seawall in their backyard that's owned by the resident, that's on them? It, to me, is something similar that we have to consider when we're talking about making repairs to a resident's property. So that's something that needs to be thought about. A second thing that needs to be thought about is when we start talking about we will do this to people's properties only if there's a bona fide inability to take corrective action. We need to have a definition of bona fide, and who's going to be the one that decides what that is? Is it that you make $30,000 a year, so we're going to not do yours, and you make $25,000 a year, so will you do yours? Is it your property is valued at $450,000, so we're not going to do your property, but your value is $250,000, so we're not going to do yours? Is it that you're 73 and you're 53? So we need to know what bona fide means. Is it a financial? I mean, I think it's way too vague when we're starting to spread taxpayer dollars around to certain taxpayers, and who decides which taxpayer is going to get that money? We're talking about a few $1,000s per property when we start doing this, and so that's substantial. So how do we say to one neighbor, we're going to fix you and not the other? So if we're going to do this, the only way to make it fair, in my opinion, would be to do them all and not have this as a grant. Now, that may blow the budget, so maybe we can't do this. These are all things that we need to consider when we're passing a law like this. Also, I have in here, again, it's who is going to, oh, sorry, that's my concerns with passing something like this. If we do pass it, we have to have some things, I think, in here that will help us out, because there are a lot of culvert pipes that are in some of the swales out there that were never permitted, that someone just dropped a culvert pipe in it, covered it up with dirt, and sodded it. It happens all over the place. Someone's got a boat they want to drive in next to their fence, they'll just throw a culvert pipe down there, and it's not that easy to catch every single time. And so we have to, I think, put in there a stipulation that the culvert pipe that is to be replaced by the city will be one that was permitted and inspected in the past by the city. So I think that needs to be there, because if we're going to, if in fact we have one that's not permitted and inspected, and we come upon that, then we simply remove that and go forward and allow for the proper flow. So those are my concerns. I can't support this as it's written tonight, because I don't think those concerns can be alleviated this evening. The legal issues with how do we fix one person's and not the others? How do we fix the front yard but not the back? Those are very much concerns to me. So I won't be able to support this for those reasons. Not because I don't think we need to fix these, because I do think we need to fix these. But I think we need to do something better than this in order to get us to where we can do
it. You raised some interesting questions, but in the front yards and the side yards are easements. They belong to the city. It's clear. So it's not like the seawalls where some people's property, there are issues that it's on their property and not within our easement. So I think the easements are clear issues. But I agree with Councilmember Dodd in that I think a lot of the problems could be resolved with angling because right now, if you drive around, we have spent a lot of time with the auger going through, and you see these nice little, it either has quarter round or maybe not quarter round. I don't have quarter round, but I have a nice little swale alongside my house and in front of my house. But the water can't get to it because there's no slope to get there. And the water pools, it doesn't flow anywhere, it doesn't, oh, by the way, not everybody has a driveway that has an underlayment or has a pipe through it. I'm the high spot on my corner, allegedly, but this was city determined, and so I don't have a pipe under my driveway. Therefore, I don't need cleaning, but I definitely need the slope and all down through the road. Again, much cheaper than having to do the pipes. So I agree. I think we need to look at the big picture, include it for a long time to come, and start looking at the problem areas where we know it's more than one house. I can take you to a house right now. I just got a call last week, and it's a combination underneath the driveway, and the neighbor had built up the swale and built it so high that the water ran totally off of his or her property and clogged up everybody else's. And it was done by intent. And we have a lot of that going on. So how do we deal with that? The snowbird might come down, put some rocks underneath the driveway, clog it all up, and then how do we go and enforce, hey, you did this yourself, because we came last year, we fixed this nice, what's going on? So, I mean, we got to consider that. How do we can write that you are responsible, but when we have people not being responsible, how do we deal with that?
They're not going to be responsible.
When we find that out.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, I think Ms. Kinchin was intimately involved in the entire process through that it appears that we're going forward with. And there was an actual policy, there was an actual way they went through, and it was methodical the way they went through the swales. And it was with the armadillos, it was with replacing culverts that were not to grade, it was with replacing culverts that were, it was a methodical process. But it was much quicker than the quarter round, and it was a process that had to be done over and over again. But it was a process. And so I think that maybe Ms. Kinchin could get with the city manager about those policies, because I know you were intimately involved, and you know more than anyone sitting up here what was being done, and that was working back then. It was actually working. And then we started putting the quarter round in, and now we're going back to that back then. So again, I think that this is not ready. But I think, but what I would say, but what I would say is that a front yard swale policy that includes everything that we're discussing here, the swale, the pipe, the slope if necessary, whatever it is, a front yard swale remediation policy is what we could go forward with. And if it's going to include us funding the replacement of those pipes, that's where we have to figure out whether we're going to fund them all or have some sort of a committee that is to be established to go over grant applications that will have to be presented to the city in order to come up with a way in which to determine who is eligible for the assistance.
Okay, so you want to make a motion that Ms. Kinchin get with the city manager to shore all that up?
I'll make a motion that Ms. Kinchin write the...
I would like to hear from Ms. Kinchin.
All right.
There is no way to fix the drainage without fixing the pipes that are under the driveways, because there are a lot of pipes that have been there for 30, 40, 50 years, and they're collapsed. They're the old box culverts, some of them. And if you don't fix those when you try to fix the drainage, you're just wasting your time. So you either have to do the armadillo and the driveway pipe repairs together, or you're not going to get the job done. Once you fix the pipe, if you have to go back and do the armadillo again, it would still work without replacing the pipe a second time, because you've got it now at the right elevation, it's a newer pipe, and it will continue to keep the drainage moving. But you're gonna have to determine, if you're gonna do it, you have to do an entire section from ditch to ditch, or it's not gonna work. You can't just fix one person's driveway and say, okay, we're leaving the street now, the drainage is gonna work. Well, it doesn't work that way. You have to fix the entire set of lots that go from ditch to ditch on that street.
Yeah, I think paying to replace the culverts under driveways that need to be replaced, I firmly support that and would be more than willing to pay for that. But I do think I agree with the comments that have been made. I think it needs to be done. Maybe the policy, I'd hate to say we reject this policy through a vote when that's not what's really, I don't think, happening. I don't think anybody is rejecting the policy. They're really asking that maybe you extend the scope of the policy a little bit and try to, and recognize that we would support, it sounds to me like, we would support spending the funds that are needed to correct that if it means replacing pipes under driveways. But at the same time, it would deal with the whole aspect, all components of that drainage thing. The one thing I heard was the armadillo will work once we replace the pipe. Well, I think once we replace the pipe, we need to make sure that the homeowner knows emphatically that it's their responsibility to keep it clean. And if we have to come back with the armadillo, we're going to charge them, and here's how much we're going to charge. Not uncommon in Florida for cities to charge people to do that kind of work. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a matter of saying, if we have to come back and clean your pipe out, then we're going to charge you for the cost of doing that, and we're going to bill you for it. And if you don't pay it, we're going to lien your property.
Unless there's a system failure,
Well, but if we put it in and it fails,
intentional.
yeah, I guess if we put it in and it fails, then we probably should fix it. We
Well,
should guarantee our own work.
there's also silt that could come down.
But still, so I would support it in that regard. I would hate, once again, like I just said, I would hate to turn this down through a vote and then have it sound like we don't support that. I would just assume we come up with some way to not do that if it means a motion that says take it back and revise it before you bring it back, which if that's suitable, I'll make that motion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that you'll tweak it and come back with some eligibility requirements, and then Ms. Kinchin will
I'll second the
review it.
motion.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on the approve the driveway pipe culvert repair policy? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Andrea Ring, 407 Query Lane. I have the exact opposite problem. Right now, my ditch is so full of water that my landscaping people can't even mow your yard. They're sinking in, and I have quarter round. My driveway is clear. I have a pipe. But they can't get to they have to use the weed eaters. So I can't clean my quarter round because you can't get to it. There's water in it. So what is the exact opposite of you all? What are you going to do with everybody in my block's the same. We all have water in our corner round, and we can't get to it.
It's possible.
And our yard men can't mow our yard because it's too wet. They sink right in.
It's possible that the driveway pipes under the driveways are plugged with dirt. Over years, the dirt goes in.
No, it's not. It's clear.
Maybe not yours, but you may have some neighbors down the street.
I'm on the corner. My neighbor, his on the corner too. No, I'm on the corner.
My swales are full too. I don't have culvert, I don't have the pipe. It's full, and my lawn guy has to put on his big boots and with the weed eater. I'm on the and I don't have a pipe under the drive because I'm the highest place. So I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios, a whole bunches. There's some things that would help you, and
Well, do you have newer houses on your street and then some older houses that have been there a long time, Andrea?
Yeah.
Or are they all fairly new?
No, there are some older, but
Okay, that also causes a problem because the septic systems, when the state sets the elevation of that, if your house is up here and then your house is down here, then you're gonna have water from the runoff from this house, which is higher. So that also causes a problem.
Okay, the corner house and my house were the same year, 2005, they built.
Yeah.
So,
I would suggest contacting the city manager or someone down at the city so they can come out and take a look at what the situation is, and they can give you a better idea of what's actually going on,
Yeah.
rather than the
Yeah.
conjecture, thinking that maybe this, that, and the other. Because there are 1,000 things that it could be, and we could talk about all of those tonight, but it's probably best if you have a member of the city staff come and visit you and take a look, and they could probably determine exactly
Yeah.
what the
Call
problem
the
is.
Citizens Hotline.
thank you. I just want to
welcome.
let you know that there's the other side. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak about the pipe culvert?
Good evening, Albert Iovino, Franciscan Avenue, City of Sebastian. I think the policy sounds like a great idea. I do believe that it needs to be revamped a little bit. What I would suggest is, because it sounds like it's going to be a combination of a bunch of things, the armadillo, the piping, maybe even still maintaining the quarter round. I would make the suggestion in regards to the quarter round, because mine tends to work very well, as a matter of fact. Actually, the drainage in my yard would be perfect if my neighbor maintained his quarter round. I heard you earlier talking about disabled folks or some folks, the elderly, that aren't able to do that on their own, coming up with maybe a eligibility list or maybe some type of application process to be able to say, okay, this person qualifies, this person doesn't, just to keep track of it. Just something to consider. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Ben Hawker, City of Sebastian. We got a sidewalk on Schumann. A person came here complaining that there were a lot of cracks in the sidewalk. They didn't ask the homeowner to remove the sidewalk and repair it. The city did it. It's on city property. There is an easement around my property, but it's on my property. My property, everyone thinks they own to the road. Well, it's about 15 feet from the road where my property line is. The driveway with the apron and the pipe was a directive when the house was built by the city to have a pipe and an apron. It's not on my property. You're telling me that if it breaks, I've got to repair it? It was a directive to a city standard. If it failed, let the city repair it. Again, quickly, my neighbor, before I moved there, had his pipe replaced in the driveway, the apron. It was only a cut as wide as this table here. They cut it, lifted the pipe out, put a new pipe in, and put cement. They didn't change the whole apron. They replaced the pipe. Now, I get the impression that people are under the impression that we're going to bulldoze the apron completely and replace everything to put a pipe in. It's just a saw cut. Any contractor can do it. But again, it's on city property. It's not in the easement. It's on city property. I have to keep a sidewalk clean if I had one in front of my house. But I don't have a directive to replace that sidewalk. The city does. This swale, the pipe under my driveway is the same thing as the sidewalk. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on the driveway culvert issue? Any further council discussion?
Yeah, just one thing. The Land Development Code does specifically delineate that a driveway cannot obstruct the water flow, and that you have to put a pipe under it to not obstruct water flow. And it says, the last sentence of the paragraph 6 in that area says, owners shall keep drain pipes and swales clear and mowed. And that's in the Land Development Code. So it is specifically in there that the homeowners are responsible for that.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Griffin, you think you can tweak it, come back with us? You got enough information? All right. So should we move on to the 12B, which has to do about the construction?
I would just say that there is a motion and a second on the.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
motion and a second.
Yeah, I got confused, so that does happen after
Can we
long
read it
days. All right, any other discussion on that? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Councilmember Kitchen?
What's the
We
motion?
may
The
want to
motion is
restate the
send it
motion.
back to the city manager to
Yes.
revise.
Yes.
and you were gonna take care of writing it. That was part of the motion,
Yes,
so.
she is.
Mayor
No
Mc-
problem.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coy,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And I
Brings-
think the next item, unless you want to, I'll move that we send that back to the city manager for the pending, the resolution on the first item.
Second.
Okay.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on that? All right, any further discussion on that? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Mayor McPartlin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coy,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Kitchen.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Please accept item 12C, waive the bidding procedures and piggyback Clay County bid contract for Musco Sports Lighting. Mr. Griffin.
On this year's budget, rec impact fees is replacement of our baseball field sports lighting. Musco is one of our providers. We are submitting a bid from them on a piggyback agreement with Clay County. $375,000 was approved in the 17-18 budget, and we are recommending approval.
I move approval.
Second.
All right. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this incident? Any further council discussion?
I just have one question. On page 132 of 209, there was a credit from the contractor for design parameters on 30/20 light levels. Is that because, are they basing that on the current lighting system, or has there been some engineering work done out there to where they don't feel they need to do engineering work?
I'm not sure. I don't know, but I'll find out.
Okay.
Musco does do a lot of our sports lighting. We use them over on the football field. For example, perhaps they already did some work out there. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Mr.
The only
Dodd.
reason I asked that question is I tried to find the 30/20 in their documentation, and I couldn't find 30/20 anywhere spec'd out, so I didn't know whether it was something that they knew was right for that area, and they're just not gonna charge you to do that or what. But that doesn't change my opinion on approving this, so.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Vice Mayor Coy,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill, Councilmember Kitchen,
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us up to item 12D, approved memorandum of agreement with the Florida Division of Emergency Management for notifying citizens of public safety announcements. Mr. Griffin.
One of our, as I brought out in your agenda packet, the item, one of the lessons learned after the hurricane, actually, one of our citizens came forward and made the suggestion that we have an emergency alert system, either by text, email, phone, whatever it is. I asked Rob Messersmith, our IT guru, to check into that after the hurricanes were over, and he came up with this system that Division of Emergency Management, Florida Division of Emergency Management already has, and this is a free system that would be available to the city. The county uses this, the school board uses this. Robbie and I, we did a webinar on this along with a couple other municipalities, representatives from a couple other municipalities, and we would like to move forward with this. The first thing where we have to start is this memorandum of agreement that you would authorize me to sign to get the system started for us. Now, one of the big fiery hoops that we will have to jump through is to create a database, either phone numbers or text numbers or whatever that is, and emails, things like that. I'll be leaving that up to Rob, but we would like to have this evolve so that we would be able to, when there's a certain emergency, or this would have really helped in our debris cleanup, our start and our finish to alert citizens, that we would have this available. So we're recommending approval.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval.
Second. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this? All right. I guess the only question, like you said, would that count for an Amber Alert too?
Oh, I already get those.
I think we could,
Well,
I think it would do
this system would
that.
have, Sebastian residents.
I think we, I'm not sure. I really don't know, sir.
I was just thinking
Yeah.
when,
Yeah,
when you
it
brought
may-
that up, but I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And Rob, thank you for taking this on.
Yeah, I already get them on my phone,
Yeah.
just not the home,
Right,
not the
but
home phone.
I'm just saying, if a kid goes missing at Sebastian Park, this way all the Sebastian residents would get it, not just the people who are signed up for the Amber Alerts.
Ah, okay.
So, any further discussion on this matter?
We
Roll
should,
call, Ms.
yeah,
Williams.
just 1 second. We should, the instructions on how individuals go in and sign up for various things, I know you're talking about using this where you send out a broadcast, but but it appears to me in reading this documentation that an individual can go in and sign up to receive alerts from other services, and we
Yeah,
might want to
I
put
would
those on the
hope that
website,
that's how
maybe
we're gonna
even
handle
some
it.
other way to do that.
We're going to have to try to develop that. Robbie had a good idea about the utility, Indian River County Utilities. I thought of Florida Power and Light.
Right.
I don't know if that's
Waste
proprietary.
management, holidays,
There's a couple
pickup.
different things that we'll just have to work into how we're going to build that database. But Robbie will be working on it.
All right, any further discussion on this item? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Kitchen,
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin,
Yes,
Vice Mayor Coy.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. These up to city attorney matters. You have anything for us tonight, Ms.
Yeah, I
Vanderbilt?
have actually 2 quick matters. The first is that I've been getting a couple of phone calls from citizens, and with the council's approval, I generally have adopted a policy, I am asking for your approval to generally adopt a policy that I am not taking citizen calls, because my job is to advise the council and to advise city staff and not to give legal advice to citizens, which would probably be why citizens are calling me. So I just kind of wanted to let you know that there have been a couple of phone messages I've received that are not from committee members, staff members, or a council member that I am hesitant to return, and so have not done so. I've been a government attorney in a different state, in a different type of position before, and that was kind of the restriction that was put on us. We didn't take members of the public because our job was to advise the government body. And so, again, unless anyone objects to that, that's generally the policy I'm going to adopt, if that's okay with you.
No,
Yeah,
I
have
don't
no
argue with
problem
that at all.
Okay.
That's
Turn the
it.
messages over to staff.
That's it. It's not your idea to give free legal advice, so that's it. Anything else, ma'am?
Okay, I just also wanted to briefly mention, and I hope I'm not stealing anyone's thunder by doing this, that Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th. And the vote by mail request deadline is November 1st. The municipal canvassing board by our city ordinance is comprised of myself, the city clerk, and another appointed member, who I believe is Kathy Testa, correct? So I just wanted to remind the public of that. There are 3 council seats up for election, and that's all.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Griffin, you have anything?
Nothing tonight, sir.
All right. Ms. Williams, you have anything for us?
Supervisor Swan's going to test the machines on Halloween, October 31st, if anybody's interested. She has new machines for everyone to vote on, so that'll be kind of neat.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hill, you have anything?
Oh, yeah, just say that, Ms. Coy, it's been a great pleasure battling it out with you over the years. Although we have not met in the middle or agreed on every issue, I think that we've had some spirited debates, but both of us, I believe, without question, have the city's best interest at heart. So I appreciate everything you've done for the city over the last, 14, 12?
Almost 13, 12 years, 9 months, X number of days, hours.
Well,
Who's
thank you
counting?
very much. I appreciate your service.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you. Ms. Kinchin?
I also want to thank Andrea for her service. I know she's been here a long time, and she's taught me a lot of stuff, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Dunn?
Thank you for your service. I've only been here for less than a year dealing with you, but I've been very impressed with your.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Coy?
Yeah, wow, historic moment for me. The last time sitting up here, 12 years and 9 months plus. But I wanted to say a special thank you to the charter officers, to Jeanette, for putting up with me. I mean, I've been around, Jeanette's had to pay attention for a long time. Joe Griffin, the city manager, put up with a lot of stuff, answered my questions when I stomped my feet sometimes, and to council too, for putting up, and Mr. Hill, yeah, we had a lot of good debates, but you know what was really cool is most of the time, we met somewhere in the middle, and it came out to be a good decision. So that's how it works. If we were all like-minded up here, it would be a really boring city. So it's been a pleasure for me. It's been a great honor for me to sit up here and to have been elected 6 times in a row by you guys, the citizens. So thank you, citizens of Sebastian. It's been a great honor. Thank you to the charter officers and to all the staff that has helped me get through 12 years and 9 months. I will miss this job a little. No, I'll miss it, but it's time for me to take a break and move on to other things. See you in Walmart, folks. I'm still around. I'm not going anywhere. So thank you again.
All right. Again, I just want to thank you, Ms. Coy, and it's okay if you're retiring from here, because I got plenty of projects that you can work on and assist with. And I mean, you are a tremendous advocate for people in this community, always answering their phone, always visiting their homes, and again, just advocating for them. And I really, truly admire that. And you've taught me a lot over the years as well. But of course, you're a retired Master Sergeant. I always listen to my Master Sergeant. So the only thing I have is Safe Space, which is the domestic violence shelter that serves Indian River, Martin, and St. Lucie counties. They're having their annual Rockin' the Walk, where a bunch of men go down and wear 4-inch heels, you know, and they donate $50 to raise money for domestic violence awareness, as well as it's men who are taking a stand for victims of domestic violence and saying it's not okay. They'll be doing their annual Walk a Mile in Her Shoes at the Indian River Mall starting at 10:30 in the morning. And it says it goes to 12:30, so it might take some of those gentlemen more than 2 hours to walk the mile going around the mall. But for more information, you can contact Safe Space at 772-223-2399, or just Google Safe Space for information on the walk. And if you want to come down and try the walk, that's great, or just want to donate, or if you just want to come down and see some people who are standing up to raise awareness and, you know, I don't want to say fight back, but, you know, take a stand with victims of domestic violence. And that's all I have. Good night.